Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home.
Welcome, everybody, to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive, and you're going to love my guest today because I love her and she's amazing. And her message is so apropos for those struggling with emotional eating. So if you're here at the Heal Your Hunger Show for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. This is where we do a deep dive into the underlying causes of emotional eating because, as you know, diets and exercise aren't going to cut it, okay? They're not going to get you where you want to go. You've probably been trying for way too long. So let's dig into the real causes, what's driving you to the refrigerator time and time again, which will include some of the things we talk about today. And then if you haven't taken our quiz yet, join us, go to healyourhunger.com and take the quiz and find out if you're an emotional eater or a food addict or somewhere in between, and you'll get a personalized score in like 3 minutes. It's free. So definitely go over there. And then we often do our podcast interviews in the Secret Sauce group. So go to Facebook and jump in, type in the secret sauce to end emotional eating now, and join us in the Facebook group. And that's where I do live trainings and we do lots of our podcast interviews, and all kinds of goodies are offered there first. So you'll be the first to hear about it. So on with the show, I want to introduce you to my good friend, Kerry Tepedino, who is a global leader in women's personal development, focusing on mindset mastery, emotional intelligence, and self-love. She supports women in challenging their self-defeating behaviors and overcoming past traumas and fears to create a life of true happiness rooted in self-love. And her Perfect Health Mastery, Awaken and Discover Your Sacred Self programs have supported thousands of women on up-leveling their lives in all areas, including physical, mental, and emotional health, relationships, professional careers, finances, and more. And I just want to say, I just love Kerry because she walks her talk, and she's out there blazing the trail of courage and stretch, and just really just making her life even more fabulous and bringing other women along with her. So welcome, Kerry.
Thank you. Thank you, Tricia.
Yeah.
I love that introduction. I'm so excited to be here because you know my history, you know my story.
Yeah.
And this topic of emotional eating or food, I mean, it's where I did too. And it's such a close message and mission to my own heart. I really get how painful it is to be in that cycle of, self-abuse and disruption and escape and hiding and, all of that. And I promise you, all of our friends here who are on this podcast and watching and listening in, I promise you there's another way. Just
Amen. Well, we got to get off the diet track.
Oh God,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I love your work as well, because it's so deeply enriching and helps people enrich their lives. So talk to me about how you sort of your own personal development into somebody as confident as you are and as fearless as you are. Because remember, you guided us, our group, jumping off a rock close to a year ago in Hawaii. That was truly amazing. I was actually made a decision not to do it. I remember telling my boyfriend, like, oh, they're doing this rock jumping thing, but I don't think I'm going to do that.
It was cliff jumping. It wasn't just a rock. Come on.
Right. It was a cliff. Yeah, it really was. And that's why I decided I wasn't going to do it. And then I ended up doing it. It was the coolest thing. And you're the one who led the tribe there.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing about being fearless is that it wasn't that I wasn't scared, just like you were scared. I was scared too to jump off that cliff, but I was more scared to stay small. Right. And so that's the big lesson. Whenever there's something big in front of us, it's normal as part of our human experience, just being human beings. It's normal to feel scared or nervous or hesitant or anxious or whatever, but that doesn't mean you're on the wrong path.
Right.
It just means that you're growing, that you're shifting, that you're creating a new paradigm. And so I do a lot of study with mindset in the brain. And so anytime you do something new, the neurons in your brain are firing off different messages those connect and they create new connections in your brain. Every time you do, even driving to work a different route will create a different connector. And then every time that new connection is made, boom, you just opened up to another opportunity or possibility for your life. And
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of research on this. So even like for our friends here in regards to emotional eating or food addiction, whichever it is, it's like every time you choose to close the refrigerator and go for a walk instead, in that moment where you're feeling stressed or you're feeling disconnected or you're feeling unease for whatever reason, and you do something differently, boom, you just opened up a new possibility for yourself, a new opportunity.
Absolutely. Amen. I love it. So, so true. And I love what you said too, is it doesn't mean you're on the wrong path, because so much of the time, like I used to spend so much time wondering like, what's God's will? Like, what should I be doing? And the moment I got afraid, I'm like, oh, I got to shut it down. That must not be right. And that's not true. Like when we're like blazing a new path, we're going to be afraid. And it's the key is to just kind of notice and keep moving through it.
Right. I expect the fear, but it's just like, be courageous anyways. Right.
Yes.
So it's focusing on the possibilities versus the limitations.
Yes.
And not letting whatever that fear it is, just know that as soon as you disrupt the pattern the first time, the next time you feel fear or stress or whatever, anxiety or whatever it is, you want to become an escape artist with food, right? Whatever that is, then you've already started to create a different cellular memory for yourself. And if you've done it once, you can do it again. Absolutely. If you've created success once, you can do it again, right? It's just replicating. It's like rinse and repeat. Replicate who you were being to create that success the first time, and then do it again.
Yeah. And let's talk about the self-defeating thoughts, because that's what's usually going to make us stop, is when our head is going hog wild. Like, you shouldn't do this. What are you, crazy? Like, you're going to fail. So what do you say about that?
Okay, so we call that the monkey mind. And just so everybody kind of knows, like I used to be 50 pounds heavier than I normally am. I'm pregnant right now, so I'm probably about the same. But 50 pounds heavier than I normally am. I had a full-blown eating addiction. I was bulimic. At times I was an over exerciser. I was a anorexic at times. Like I did the whole gamut, right? So I really understand. I understand what's happening in our friends' minds that are here with us.
Yeah.
And so I just want to speak into this. So and Tricia also knows this. So we've just launched the One Thought Away project, and it's something we've been teaching for a long time, but we're pulling this piece out and going deeper with it. And I'm sharing this because I want you to get, friends, you're one thought away from breaking the addiction or not. One thought away from a choice or not. One thought away from setting yourself up to win or not, right? And clearly with addiction, because I was an addict too, there's a lot more to it. But what you were thinking it's a huge step in your success formula. Because if the monkey mind is saying, who do you think you are? You've been stuck in this pattern forever. Oh, other people get results, but not you. Then all the trillions, and we have trillions of cells in our bodies, and think of all the trillion cells with little tiny brains, and they're listening to your big brain, and your big brain is sending off 60 to 70,000 messages a day. So if it's constantly saying, who do you think you are? You can't, go back to your room, girl, or whatever it's saying, then all the cells are listening to that. Mm-hmm. So it's really to get to the root of what you are thinking. And we do reprogramming work. I'm sure we do too, but we rewire and reprogram the thinking. If it's old stale thinking from your childhood, it's time to reinvent. You get to reinvent. Right. And so there's a lot of strategy to it. But I think one of the most important things we can give today is this heightened awareness around, well, what are you thinking? Right. Yeah. And start to bring our friends to that question.
Yeah, it's a lot of crazy in there. Well, I know when I'm afraid, my head's busy, but I totally agree with you, because, I used to get so spooked. My thoughts used to spook me all the time. And then once I just started taking action anyway, it was sort of like, I'm like showing them who's boss. It's like, I'm not going to listen to you anymore. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to keep going forward, and as I would make that bold step each time, it's sort of like they got a little quieter, like they knew they couldn't win anymore because I wasn't really going to pay much attention.
Right. We call that the pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
Right. So we have our patterns. Patterns are our normal ways of thinking, our normal ways of feeling, our normal ways of acting. So remember, so your thinking is influencing your feelings are influencing your thinking, around and round and round you go. And what you're feeling is absolutely affecting the actions you take on a daily basis. And the consistent daily actions become your habits. For us, we speak rituals because we say habits with intention are more like rituals, right? And so become your rituals, and your consistent habits or rituals are absolutely influencing every single result you have in your life right now. And so when we come in there and we disrupt the patterns that aren't serving us anymore. So if the pattern is let me give a good example. So I have a client who's actually now one of my coaches. She was a client about 6 or 7 years ago. And she just rock starred her way through our programs now. But she had this pattern of emotional eating, and she would come home from work and she would go to the kitchen, she'd get chips, she'd go sit down on the couch, and she'd numb out and eat the chips without ever tasting one and watch TV. And I finally really got what she was doing. And I said, those people on TV, number one, those people on TV aren't your friends, right? Right? Like she had gotten lost in like her episodes and her series, and like it become like her friends. I'm like, they're not real, right? And she laughed and she's like, oh my gosh, like I have allowed them to become my social circle. Right. And so, and what we ended up doing is we created that pattern interrupt. So before she left work, she'd message on our group, because we have a group forum and a group community. And she'd message, okay, I'm headed home now. And then she would get home. And as soon as she walked in the door, she said, okay, I'm home now. And and then she would go to her bedroom and she'd take off so we created a transition ritual for her. She'd take off her work clothes, she'd put on her lounging clothes, and she wouldn't go straight to the kitchen, right? And so we created a disruption to the old pattern. She lost, I think, 35 pounds. She lost, let's say 30 or 35 pounds, because we disrupted the mindless eating, because we disrupted I don't even know so much if it was emotional eating. It was just mindless eating.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's just kind of like on automatic pilot.
Right. And she didn't even realize. And that's the thing with a lot of these habits, is they're so unconscious, right? Where they're like, we don't even know they're happening. So sorry about that. So step one is to heighten your awareness around what's actually influencing your current results. And then step two is expand your possibilities and what you start to believe is possible for you.
Absolutely. New tools and new habits. I love that. So in your life, if you don't mind me getting personal, you're pregnant with twins. Congratulations.
Yes, you want to
yes. So
I'm very pregnant with twins.
So beautiful, Kerry. And what I love about you is you live out loud, and you're absolutely walking your talk. So talk to us about a few ways that you've busted out in the past 5 years and the way you are living, your most courageous life.
Yeah, well, I think as you know a lot of my story, but it's about getting really clear on what's really important to you and not letting anything get in the way. Like when I had my first son, I was, so I had turned 40. I freaked out that I was 40, hadn't found my guy, didn't have a family yet. And then I turned 41 and I was freaking out even more. And I finally really got like, you know what? family is really important to me. I'm not going to let that dream slide just because I don't have my king yet. And so I stopped dating everybody because I realized, wow, I'm actually looking for a baby daddy, not a husband. And I realized how unfair that was. Stopped dating. I actually went to a sperm clinic. I got pregnant on my own. I had my first son at 42, and then met my husband when my boy was 2 years old. He's the only daddy he'll ever know. We've been married for about 3 years now, and long fertility journey, miscarriage, a bunch of stuff happened along that. And here we are at 47 with twins. I'll birth them at 48 in a couple months.
Wow.
And it's really about like this fearless piece. It's again, it wasn't that I wasn't scared to become a first-time parent and a single parent. I was scared, but my dream was more important, right? It wasn't that I wasn't scared to do a multiple birth at 47 and 48. I was scared, but but the dream was more important. And so what I did is I go, and this is what I'm inviting our friends to do, is go quiet with yourself and see yourself. And I don't mean to be morbid, but see yourself at the end of your life. We're all going towards the end of our life. It's just the human experience. I'm not being morbid. But if you got to the end of your life and you looked back, would you have any regrets? Like, what were those dreams that were actually really important for you, but you didn't go for because you thought you didn't have the money, or you didn't have the time, or you didn't have the support, or whatever it was, right? Or I'll get to that later. And anything that's like, if you can see yourself like in that position of not having gone for it, and there's like pain around that, then do whatever it takes. Put your blinders on and do whatever it takes to make that dream come true. Or at least give it your best shot, is what I would say.
Amen. And you're doing it. And I just love that. And you know a lot about my story too. And I've been doing that too over the past several years. It's life is too short, and we just really need to get on purpose. And I think 50 actually does something to you, like late 40s, getting on to 50. I think it does bring things into really clear focus, as it did for me, because you're just like, you better be making something of this life that you've been given, and exactly that, following your dreams and making things happen. And when you do get, the amazing thing to me is when you do get intentional, it's like you don't make it happen, but it happens because you're making space by your intention.
Yes, exactly. And this is not a dress rehearsal, ladies. We got this one chance.
Right.
We got this one chance. This isn't a dress rehearsal. So chase that dream like crazy and get aligned to it. And just like you said, Tricia, like when you get aligned to it, all of a sudden you're meeting the right people that could help make it happen.
Yeah.
Or, the money comes that wasn't expected that can help make that dream happen. Things start to fall into favor.
Yeah.
And, I speak a lot about like the universe and source, and the universe doesn't play favorites. The universe rewards people who are in consistent, intentional action, right? Miracles don't happen to the lucky. They happen to those with a vision who chase that vision like crazy.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden people go, oh, it was a miracle. Well, not really.
No.
Like, hard on this,
Yep, absolutely. I love that. Well, I know, we're ending our show here, but I want to ask you a question that I ask most of my guests when I remember to, and that this being the Heal Your Hunger show, what is your deepest hunger, Kerry?
My deepest hunger, you know what? I would say it's to consistently show up as the best version of me as possible. And that's a challenge no matter where we are on our journey. Sometimes that's just hard because we're all human, right? So those moments that like I have a short temper, especially hormonal short temper pregnancy, but those moments where I have maybe a short temper with a loved one or something like that, it's like catching myself before those moments happen, and instead of having to do cleanup, or if I need to do cleanup, do it right away. My deepest hunger is to be the best version of myself possible and never to play small.
Love it. Love it so much, and love you. You're really just a shining example of everything you're talking about today. So thank you for being here. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Kerry, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, jump on over to my site. It's kerrytepedino.com. So it's just my name. It's easy. kerrytepedino.com. There's a free gift there. And we do the Happy and Healthy with Kerry show twice a week at facebook.com/whoiskerry, Mondays and Thursdays. It's really fun, super powerful community. We'd love to have you guys there. And if there's any other way we can support you, and if you're ready to really go deep with the mindset work to the next level, what we do works in great collaboration with what Tricia does. And so just email support@Kerry Tepedino.
Cool. Thank you. And thanks everybody for tuning in. And please share this show with others who don't know about it. And again, come back for the next show. We love you. And thanks, Kerry.
Thank you, Tricia. Love you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.